Hi there, welcome to rebelplaybook.com. Today we've got Patty McCord with us. Patty, you did 14 years at Netflix as Chief Talent Officer. She also worked at Borland and Sun Microsystems. She is absolutely from the Valley. Patty, you're well known for your revolutionary HR ideas, like treating people as fully formed adults, creating jobs with accountability built into them, and running an open and honest culture. What I really want to know is, how did what sounds like common sense just not become common practice? How did we get here?
Well, I'll tell you about my personal journey, and you'll have to get here however you can.
Okay.
Hopefully everybody in our function somewhere, somehow has like a little modicum of common sense in them. I'm from Texas, and my mama calls it horse sense. Well, you know, honey, that just doesn't make any sense. So sometimes when I'm doing something that seems stupid, I think, what would my mother say? So first, it is common sense. I think you're at the core of it. But I think how we got here was we started doing stuff, you know, processes and procedures and administrative and things to protect us from our employees that might sue us, and initiatives and they just built on each other. We never threw anything away. And then what we started doing to create consistency and fairness, which I think was a true goal in the beginning, became this thing we call best practices, like the performance review and the annual compensation review that's performance tied to pay, and you know, all of the stuff that we do. And the biggest, most painful, horrible thing we did was we perpetuated this notion that if you join a firm, the rest of your career can be there.
Yeah.
And that if you're loyal to the firm and you do the right things and you climb the ladder, that you can have lifetime employment. And people believed it. And it was never true.
No.
And it hasn't been true in decades. And so, you know, I think we've created a system where employees can't help but be cynical. You know, we tell them one thing and we do another, and then it just grates on you over time. It just makes you not happy.
No.
And we got away from like why we really love work.
Yeah.
I mean, I deeply believe that when you go home at night and you say to whoever's there, you know, your pet, "Oh my God, it was a great day at work today." You don't say, comma, "the macadamia nuts were amazing in the cookies."
No.
It's always, we did it.
Yeah. That's it, isn't it? Good job's challenging, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I know we've said it before, you get home on a Friday. I remember sitting in our Boston office with the VP Sales and VP Marketing. We were all on the floor. We were exhausted from the week.
Yes.
And we're like, God, that was a good week.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
I mean, we were absolutely spoiled. There was nothing we could do for the rest of the afternoon, but we had a good week.
Yeah, I was just telling you about my HR posse, my secret gathering of HR people who ran startups in San Francisco and the Silicon Valley. And so many of them have, they have departments around employee happiness. Okay. There's the employee happiness officer, and you know, you and I think we agree on what we believe engagement is, but they think happiness equals engagement.
Yeah.
And you know, they can't tie the work that they do to any business metric or anything that matters, right? And I say, you know, because the happy workforce is the engaged workforce, and it may or may not be. And I challenge each and every one of them. I say, look, instead of making people happy next week, just take a week off and start talking to your employees and say, tell me about the greatest day you ever had at work. Tell me about the thing that you're most proud of. And I said, I guarantee you, none of them will be easy.
No.
Right? They will always be like, oh, we thought it was over. I mean, you know, my Netflix stories are always like, was there ever a moment that you doubted that it would work out? I'm like, oh, that would be most.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the path to achievement is not a straight line, is it?
Well, especially in early stage companies.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in startups. You know, if you think about let's do common sense of startups. Startups are all stupid ideas.
Yeah.
They are, because the logical, reasonable ideas that everybody thinks is a good idea, somebody is already doing, right? Logical stuff big companies can do. So in startup, you solve problems by just working hard. You just pound it, right?
Yeah.
And most of the way you solve those problems is screwing it up.
Yeah.
Right? The whiteboards are full of not like, great idea. They're like, not that, because you don't know.
But it's funny, I found when in our 10 or 11 years, people think people look at it and they think, oh, that was amazing success, and they only remember the stuff that works. And like, there's a litany of failure in every single 6 months. I mean, they literally only remember the products and stuff that work.
They don't remember groveling like I did to say, if we couldn't make payroll.
That's funny. That I can remember that sick to the pit of your stomach feeling at 4 a.m. when you're not sure you're going to make payroll that month. Unless you sell some shit today, you know. And because if the cash doesn't come in, it's not going to happen.
Well, let's talk about that in terms of the question you asked me about what makes people just unhappy at work.
Yeah.
And about the thing I know we both believe in, which is, you know, trust. Because when people have a sense of trust in the people that they work with and what they're going to do and clarity around those things, then it makes it easier for them to have big independent judgment and make decisions, therefore making an impact, therefore doing something hard that they're proud of, right? And it starts with the, let's take that example. When it's early and you're protecting your employees from the bad news, and they all know.
Oh no!
Right?
Building knows the truth.
Yeah, I mean, in the last .com boom, I remember interviewing people. They're like, "Well, you know, what happened to our company was it was going to hell, and management didn't tell us." And I'm like, "You didn't know?" Well, no, nobody said a word. I'm like, you're in accounting. Didn't you notice you weren't paying the bills? I'm just saying. It's
like, you know, I've been in places where I've been in my own company where like, shall we tell everyone that we've missed the sales quota for the? And I'm like, you think they don't know? Like the sales team's in the room. Look at the misery on their face. Everyone knows we're missing the quota.
Right.
But we pretend that we haven't missed it, and then now we've missed the quota, and no one trusts us either because we lied. We lied by not saying.
Which is the other part of how I became who I am, because I'm a Silicon Valley girl, because I grew up in technology, because I lived in the world of engineers, particularly software engineers my whole life. These guys are Spockian, right? And it's good or bad, it's right or wrong, it's black or white, it's 0 or 1, and anything in between is bullshit. So in order to get their respect, I would have to actually listen to what they say, really listen, and not prepare in my head my HR response. I think the annual performance review is a bullshit waste of time. No, the reason why we, you know, there's that automatic HR speak just spews. No, it's a chance for you to, you know, connect the vision of the corporation to your individual contribution and your compensation. And the people are sitting there going, what, did you even say anything? You know, and when I talk to HR conferences, I'm pretty cruel. It's pretty heartless.
She is, guys.
I am,
I've seen her
you see me do it, where I say to them, you know, right now, right here, when you're all together with me, back at home in your companies, they're talking about you behind your back. They're making fun of you.
Rolling their eyes.
They're rolling their eyes at at the things that you say. And so, you know, if you want to do anything that's going to matter, stop saying those things. You know, listen.
So we should write out all the HR jargon and then have some sort of filter that stops us from saying
in my team I had HR buzzword bingo.
Did you?
Yeah, and it was a weekly thing, and sometimes we'd add new categories. It was like Jeopardy, you know. And the answer is, and I would get these, you know, invitations to these huge conferences. I'm like, oh baby, I got a full diagonal, you know, in this email. So you could enter an email or a podcast or an article that
someone smart can probably make us like a Chrome extension that like highlights it all or something for us when we type it. That could be our new app. We could make some sort of like
or maybe like a device that just like gives you a little shock every time you say something like empowerment or
So what should leaders do to change their workforce for the better, change their company culture for the better? What are the kind of key things places they should start?
I think the fundamentals really have nothing to do with culture and more to do with logic. I think that I personally think the answer to creating a really receptive and able and viable workforce for the future is to teach people as soon as they come to work how to read a P&L, what a business is like. How do you make money? Who are your customers? Who are your competitors? What are the teams trying to do? What's your short-term vision? What do you need to accomplish? What does goodness look like? But the mere fact of learning how, I mean, I meet people who are 10 years in their career and they don't know the difference between profit and revenue. Right? I meet people in HR who literally do not know what product they're making, particularly if it's technical.
Yeah.
They've never sat next to somebody writing code. They don't know what that looks like.
Well, I pressure our COO to attempt to write our monthly numbers in a way that everyone in the company can understand.
Yes.
But I said to him recently, I said, this isn't for the engineers' benefit. It's actually because I think the rest of the leadership team doesn't understand it either.
Yeah.
I said, so if the cleaner can understand it, you get a good chance that actually the rest of the management can understand it too. Because it's amazing how many people in your business just don't.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair to us in HR a little bit, every team has its own jargon.
Of course,
and
yeah.
every, marketing people speak marketing speak, and God knows the geeks speak geek speak.
Yeah.
But that's maybe part two. Part one is the mechanics of the P&L, the mechanics of how the business works, and number two is making it okay to want to speak all of those languages, and then teaching people what they mean.
So teaching people about business and how the business works and what the money flows are around the products is
Yeah,
key.
because I think one of the biggest differences in how work works today versus the way I think we're structured to work, the pyramidal org chart and the siloed organizations, and engineering builds it and they throw it over the wall to marketing, who throws it over the wall to sales. That's just not how it works anymore.
Wow.
Because we have data, because we're all internet companies, no matter what business we're in.
Yeah.
We all have websites and direct connections to our customers, right? Our employees have direct connections to all kinds of information. So that free flow of information is the world we live in.
Yeah.
Right? So when we create the workplace that's significantly different than the real world, then we have to teach people how to operate in a new archaic system that's not effective, and so they spend time working around it. And my biggest issue with a lot of the process and procedure that we do is it's just waste of time.
Yeah.
If you can't say the reason why we do this is like anything else in your product or anywhere else in your business, you would say, okay, if we did this exceptionally well, what would the result be? What time frame would we be working towards? How would we know it's good?
And do you think, some of those HR processes, and those rules and procedures that I know you've tried to get out of places that you've worked, they often seem there to kind of protect the company against the theoretical occurrence that hardly ever happens. And when it does happen, it's not that bad anyway. And I kind of...
Yeah, I just think that is really overblown. That said, we certainly in the Silicon Valley are experiencing the backlash of no rules at all.
Right.
Right. And it's not no rules. I've been trying lately to figure out how to articulate this. It's kind of like our conversation this morning about politics. Like, there's no morality. There's no center of decency. There's no shared values around truth and compassion and empathy, right? And those things set the culture. And very often the dilemma we have, the unhappiness people have, is because people say one thing and do the other. Breaks the trust.
Yeah.
We're in Silicon Valley, the big thing we're going through right now. We're a meritocracy. No, we're not. We never have been. We're a meritocracy as long as you're a white guy who codes. Right? They're all the same.
And it's interesting, actually. You're a Silicon Valley girl. I'm a kind of UK private equity guy. So you've kind of grown up and you live in VC. I'm kind of a private equity world. So it's kind of, I do sometimes feel like two worlds that they're quite different. VC is all about kind of like hoping for incredible growth.
Yes.
Yeah. My world, private equity, is kind of looking to buy kind of more proven kind of profit and cash.
Yeah.
And sometimes I find where they meet is kind of difficult. I met a startup entrepreneur just this week, actually, kind of 5 years in, $30 million worth of VC cash down the toilet, frankly. Yeah. And he's built a business which is like a $3 million revenue and $9 million costs. And he's trying to persuade me it's worth $100 million. I'm like, I was trying to explain to him, like, if we paid that for this business, like, how many years do you think it would take for us just to get that money back? It's like, do you think that Silicon Valley entrepreneurs are fully formed adults?
Well, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Nobody's ever fully formed. It's always a formation. Do I believe that some Silicon Valley entrepreneurs are earlier in the formation than others? Oh, hell yeah. I met with one a couple of weeks ago and really really great guy, really
Yeah.
wants to make a great company, has a terrific product and a ton of financing. And he said to me, his issue was, hey, I want to talk to you about this incredible growth because we just got new funding. We have 150 employees. We're going to go to 300 by the end of the year. You know, can you help me manage that as the leader of this company? And I said, well, before we get to you, because it's not about you yet, okay? Why are you going to double employees? Well, you're going to hire another 150 people that don't know what they're doing? You think you're going to get twice as much work done? Well, that's not true. Let me just tell you, if you just go out and as fast as you can, hire another 150 people that are exactly like the 150 people you have. I said, for example, how many people are in customer service? Oh, that's a team with it. We got to double right away. And I'm like, so let's parse that. Let's unpack that. I'm assuming you have to double it because they're dealing with problems in the product, right? So the product doesn't really work that well, so they have to call a human to help them figure out how to use it. You could take those 35 salaries and hire 10 really smart, really capable people who have seen a product like this at scale before. Oh, but they wouldn't fit in. I'm like, you haven't even met them. And they're probably not going to be 24 because there's no one on your team that's seen scale. It's not that they're not smart enough.
Yeah.
They just don't have that experience. I mean, and I'm not knocking anybody who's early in their career at all. It's just early in your career you've seen this much, and later in your career you've seen this much. Now there are people who've seen this much and didn't learn anything, and there are people who've seen this much and can extrapolate it. But those are anomalies, right? So what I walked through it was, you know, what were the issues in the business that needed to be addressed in what priority order? And I'm like, that's who you want to focus your hiring on, so that you can build bench strength to then hire. Right. So then if everybody wants to hire 10 people, then you can do that. Anyway, he says, "Oh, Patty, this is so helpful. Oh my God. I mean, could you be my personal executive coach? Because I know if I had you around, I wouldn't be making all these stupid mistakes that I'm going to make." And I said, "Yeah, that's probably true. I could do that for you because I've seen a lot, but then you wouldn't learn anything. So you need to go fire your sister's boyfriend because he's an idiot." He's like, like, we've all got one.
Yeah, we've all got one.
Everybody's got one.
You always fire a good friend first.
So I think that's a tension between, there's a beauty in not knowing anything.
Yeah, as long as you learn on the journey. As long as you learn and grow on the journey.
Yeah, I mean, but that open-eyed naivete is partly what makes entrepreneurs who they are, right? I mean, if you knew better, you wouldn't do it.
Yeah,
so.
completely. It's an interesting thing about scaling, actually, as you kind of, you know, as you're kind of growing your startup, and you naturally you want to, and you're able to bring in bigger skills. You hope as you get bigger, because you can attract people who've done more. But how do you make sure you still keep the kind of fast-moving entrepreneurial spirit? Because sometimes bringing in the bigger company experience can bring in bigger company caution or speed.
Yeah, I think, and I've been thinking about it a lot. You know, I've been gone 5 years from Netflix, and I've looked at a lot of other companies' issues. So, I mean, I can tell you how we did it then, but it's not really relevant. I think that the mind shift is in figuring out what problem you need to solve. And really clarity around, if you solve this problem in the best possible way, what would be the most amazing outcome? And what most startup people don't do, they can do that, someday, right? They don't put a time frame on it.
Right.
So if I say to them, tell me the best possible outcome in this part of your business if it was solved in 6 months, right? And I walk backwards, okay, so what would you need to know how to do?
Yeah.
What skills and experience would it take for you to know how to do that?
Yeah.
Who do you got? What are the deltas? And then you don't hire somebody with just more experience. You hire somebody with enough experience and enough passion around that problem. So that's the deal. It's almost, you know, the assumption that as you get older, you move slower. As you can see, I'm not moving all that slow.
Really,
right. And I know lots of people who have tons of energy, right? And so it's more about, is the person interested in your problem and willing to enthusiastically work with you to solve it?
I understand.
Because that's where you do we need somebody with a lot of experience. Then you hire somebody with a lot of experience from a big company who comes in and says, you kids, I'm going to tell you what to do. And so both sides aren't open to learning from each other.
And it's interesting, when you start thinking about looking for the person who could help you achieve that in this time frame, then you're starting to think of kind of work as kind of, as projects and periods and create stuff. And I know you've spoken a lot about the kind of tour of duty idea, like about saying to someone, well done, you've done a great job, and that's it now. So it brings in this whole tension between like team, which you haven't talked a lot about Netflix, team versus family. So let's talk about that. We've I know Simon Sinek wrote in Leaders Eat Last. He was like, we should treat everyone like family. You'd never fire your sister or your brother, or would you?
Well, I was thinking about this in the car on the way, and I was thinking about the quote about family, and the assumption was the family that we're talking about is a warm and loving family with a grandma who makes cookies. And it's this glorification of family, and what's funny is I've met a fair amount of people who go, hell no, I don't want to work to be anything like my dysfunctional, messed up family. And oh, by the way, you can divorce, right? So I was thinking about that, like, what if you join a company that says we're your family no matter what you do, no matter how incompetent you are, we're going to help you find a way.
You'd run, wouldn't you?
Like, what if you just hate the place and you're just there to irritate everybody? My daughter, sometimes I'm like, I just need to not see you for a while. And I'll love you the whole time, but we just don't need to fight.
I think it's that thing, isn't it? If you hire someone and said, you're going to join a team where we won't fire any of them, so like no matter how good or bad they are, or whether they've done their job, whether the right person to get us from A to B next, they'll still be in your
Glenn,
team.
I have learned so much in the last couple of years because I'm paired often with sports coaches.
Right.
Have you told you my Canada story?
No, tell me
Oh,
that.
it's such a good story.
Tell me that.
Okay, I'm gonna. This is how like clueless I am about the speaking thing. Hey, would you like to come to do a conference in Montreal in February? And I'm like, sure.
Sure.
Okay, I'm totally clueless. I have no idea what Montreal is like in February. I don't have the clothes. I don't. Right. Okay, and it's at the Bell Center. I kind of know that that's a big venue, but I don't really even know that.
Okay.
And right the week before, they're like, hey, by the way, we're going to do, instead of having you do a keynote, we're going to have you be on a panel with this guy, Scotty Bowman. He's a hockey league coach, very famous, and he'll be on the stage with you. And I'm like, okay, great. I Google him. I'm like, wow, what a guy, huh? So it's blizzard. I walk underground. I go to the green room, getting ready for my talk, and Scotty Bowman's down there. He's a 70-year-old man in a suit. We talk about his grandkids and golf, and he says to me, we're under the ice. And it occurs to me, I'm in a hockey stadium. About how big? Yes, it's big. It's big. Really big. So I go up the stairs, and there's spotlights on me, and there's a jumbotron with my face, right? And people are like, and I go and sit down, and then he comes up, standing up.
Why?
He's the winningest coach in the National Hockey League, like ever, right? People are like, you can tell they're like, we're in the presence of greatness. We're in the presence of greatness. He's the old guy. He sits down. MC says, Mr. Bowman, you've coached all the greats. You've won so many tournaments. You have this unbelievable track record for winning. What's your secret? What is it that you do with your individual players that makes the team so great? What do you do about feedback? And he says, well, we play an 80-game season, and every 10 games I sit down with each player, and they do a personal evaluation, I run the statistics, I do an evaluation, I talk to the other coaches, we talk to the other team players, we talk about what it's going to take to win against the next team that we're playing, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, how we can work against them, and what kind of team spirit we need to have to be able to do that. And he's like, oh, very interesting. So he says to me, Patty McCord, you hate the annual performance review. I haven't ever heard you say what you would do instead. I'm like, what he said? Because it was so, and I went from Montreal to Ireland, and I met the guy who's the winningest coach of the Irish games, which are weird as all, the Irish games, right? And he said, I know going in that for these young men, it's men's Irish games, this is a moment they'll have only once in their life. And I want them to come away with a sense of being a winner, or at least being a fighter, and being an adult. You know, I turned like boys who play sports into men who move on after this. And I thought, you know, because in a team, you always want to be known part of having been from a great team.
Yeah.
And that, I think, for me in my career was my biggest epiphany, was the day I decided I didn't want to keep people anymore. I wanted it to be a great place to be from. And so that's a different way of saying we hire you to do a job and then it's over, then you're done.
Yeah.
And that sounds so cruel and heartless. And what I really mean is we're going to hire you to do something amazing with incredible people that you're going to be proud of. And with that's done, if there's another wonderful match for you and another wonderful thing with other wonderful people, that's great. And if not, look what you have.
Yeah, it's great too. It's interesting. I love that, making Netflix a great place to be from. And it kind of goes right to the heart of killing off this one of the biggest lies in business or HR with people, which is, I'm going to give you a permanent job. Yeah? Congratulations, I've hired you to a permanent job. $100,000 a year, and you go, permanent? Yeah, great. Except it's not. Yeah, there are no permanent jobs. They don't work. Yeah, we pretend it's not. And it's interesting. I've started to say back at work, as I'm talking to people, I say, yeah, well, when you leave RG, people look slightly like, does he know something I don't? I'm like, yeah, I know something.
Because you're gonna leave.
Like,
right.
We're all gonna leave unless we literally die at our desks. Like, we're all gonna leave, and it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be good.
When you and I met was when I addressed the group of HR people, and I said, okay, everybody raise your hand if you're in the job that you were in when you graduated from college, and if you're an intern, don't raise your hand. Of course, nobody raised. There were like 600 people there. Like, I said to them, what? They couldn't retain you?
Yeah.
What a bunch of terrible companies that were, it's...
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, and I used to think it was cynical, and now I'm starting to believe it's one of our cruelest lies. I mean, I don't know what to do about my country, right? I don't know what to do about people who want their old life back, but I know that we did them a terrible disservice. Thinking that it would last forever. Yeah. Right? And real life, all of real life. Yeah. Something comes in from left field and you deal with it. That's what happens.
The context always changes.
Yeah, and so back to like, how do I think we make great employees? We teach them those skills, those life skills of like, okay, all bets are off. Yeah. We want employees, my fantasy company of the future is when you walk in, you go, okay, well, we've rethought this whole thing. Here's what here's where we're going. This is what we thought would happen. It's not what's happening. We're going to change direction. We're going to change this, this, and this. And the entire company goes, yes. Yes. Not like, or culture conversations. I tell startup people that the sign that things are changing, and it could be for the worst, the first sign is nostalgia.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Remember how it used to be, right? And then I tell them, startups have 3 endings: bigger, smaller, eaten. Yeah. Smaller is death. There's only 3 endings, right? So you don't ever want to go backwards.
No, and that's that thing I've heard you say before is, will there be more change? Yeah, because that's growth. Yes, success. That's, right. That's what success looks like.
You know why it's different than it used to be? Because we're successful.
Yeah, successful.
Because we have a whole new set of problems.
I get that all the time. We come a lot at work, and whenever I do a restructuring announcement, I always get a comment from somebody, will there be any more restructuring? Absolutely.
Absolutely. You know what I used to say? People say, why are we organized this way? And I'd say, because that's the way we're organized. Yes. Yeah. Will you change it? Like, of course.
Yeah, I'm like, because that's the best thing we can think of today. And if we wake up tomorrow with a better idea, we'll do that.
Yeah, but that it's back to looping back to one of your questions, which was, what are the things that are institutionalized in the way we run companies that simply don't work anymore? Yeah. And one of them is that, the functional silos, the teams that have allegiance to I'm a marketing person, and all work these days is done collaboratively. Really? And so that sense of understanding the team part, which is the team we belong to is the team that delivers something to our customers. You know, my HR people would say, but we're a service organization. And I would say, yes, we are, and it's not spelled SERVANTS. And I would say, and by the way, the people we serve don't work here.
Yeah, the customer.
We serve our customers.
Absolutely.
That's right. And so, and that I think is something that's easier for people to perceive now because of the flow of information, right? It used to
so
be
much more
that
democratic.
only management knew that stuff. You don't need to know that stuff, little person.
Yeah.
You're not important.
Do you think
enough.
stuff like Slack and these things has helped with that? It has, yeah.
I mean, even the fake news.
Yeah,
Even
you can spread good and bad.
It's just there's stuff out there about everybody, and so everybody has a right to question stuff because they're not whispering the questions, they're out there.
And even stuff like Google Docs, like you know, in the old days it was on your hard drive, and like, could you send it to me?
Yeah.
Now it's just there, and it's all
I did a talk with I know Robert Homan from Glassdoor, CEO of Glassdoor. I've known Robert for a really long time. And, you know, Glassdoor has all its, like, you know, CEOs hate it and HR people hate it because it's all full of negative stuff. And Robert said, he goes, you know, Patty, we've been around for 20 years. And I said, oh, God, that's right. We baited with you. And he said, so 20 years. So let me tell you statistically that it's really about 50-50. That half of the comments on Glassdoor overall are very positive, and half, you know, some of them are very, half of them are negative. And he said, but CEOs and HR people, they only read the negatives one. Yeah.
Well, you know, I was in a dinner a few weeks ago with 6 CEOs and chairmen back in the UK, and I started talking about Glassdoor, and for 3/4 of the room, they were like, what is it? I'm like, oh, tell me your company name, quickly. And I start reading the reviews. I mean, it blew their minds because they'd managed to somehow get to where they were without ever looking at it.
All employees know though,
I'm
don't
like,
they?
I'm like, you know, you've got 107 reviews and they're not so good. Oh, apparently your product needs more testing resource, you know? And I'm like, you know, so you want to get on this, I guess.
The other thing he found, I mean, they have found such interesting data. I mean,
I bet.
They found these weird, like when Amazon had the big brouhaha about their culture, they found that consistently Bezos is voted in the top like 5 CEOs. They're voted a great company to recommend to work from, and very low in work-life balance. And then he sort of went and said, wow, I wonder if there's a weird inverse correlation there. And in some companies there are. And so, you know, the thing about a company like Amazon is they're very clear they're a really hardworking company, and, you know, and probably all the negative stuff is true. With 150,000 people, there's another 150 people that think they've died and gone to heaven. Trust me, you know that, right? Yeah. But people get a lot of stuff done, and it's a great place to be from.
Yeah, absolutely a great place to be from. We have a director from Amazon.
We all do, right? Because there's a
it's a great place to be from.
And people and the other thing about companies like that, I mean, this is sort of the aspirational dream I want people to have, which is, you know, each successive generation of innovation usually comes from people who were employees of someone else. And, you know, even I have another startup CEO, she said to me, well, I can't agree with you. Like, what if I work really hard and I train somebody up for like, maybe we succeed and like 7 years later, and after I put all this into them, I want them to leave. And I'm like, you want to have somebody 7 years out who only has 7 years of work experience here? Really? That's going to be your best person? All of them?
Yeah, all of them.
I'm like, okay, I mean, it's an interesting experiment, but a costly one if you're not
It's interesting, you know, I kind of, on my leadership team, the average tenure on my leadership team is normally about 4 years, because we're a fast-growing company, so, you know, move. And our chief product officer's just left, because he's done an amazing job for us, taken us from 10 engineers to AD, and built the whole product department, all sorts of stuff. And he wasn't the guy who was going to get us from here to the next 4 years. And it was interesting. One of our ex-investors said, "Oh yeah, that's just Reward Gateway. You know, it's how Reward Gateway does things. You know." And I'm like, how else do people do things? They just say, "Well, he joined us in 2001, and he's nice. Therefore, he'll always be there." And I'm like, you know, is that great? That's not good for him, because he deserves, he deserves to be in an amazing place.
I used to say they were like, I always change jobs every 4 or 5 years, between the 4th and 5th year, all my whole career. I used to think of it as degrees. You know, like, oh yes, you know, I have a bachelor's degree in software engineering. I have a, you know, and the reason I stuck with Netflix for so long was I got 4 companies and I never had to leave home.
Yeah.
I mean, they were significantly different companies.
I bet.
So, you know, with whole different. When we started streaming to devices, which is a whole part of the company that's kind of lost now in the change to original program, because Netflix is HBO now, is producing its own content. But when it was about technology, and the ubiquity of the service was to be in the smart TVs and the DVD players and the game players, and so that ability to have our software delivered wherever you watched video. We didn't have anybody who worked at a hardware company. I mean, no one.
No one.
We were an internet, we were web. I mean, literally no one. We didn't know who to hire. We didn't know. I mean, we knew we were smart and had figured, but that was like, I couldn't go. You know what? I'm gonna make you a Nintendo guy.
It just doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen. And so it was. And that was one of many. My first Netflix startup was, could we create a business model before we ran out of money?
Yeah.
That was 4 or 5 years, right? And then the next one was DVD by mail, and then was the transition from the technology then to streaming, and then so a company that constantly reinvents itself. But let's juxtapose that to a company like Google, which absolutely looks for people who will have a very long tenure with the firm.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they do that is because so much of what they do at Google is invention. And it's very large, and they have a lot of money. And so the Alphabet breakup is simply an acknowledgement of what was already happening at Google.
Right.
So if you start at Google and you're working on search, then you can transfer that to, maps and which transfers to self-driving cars, which transfers to, so they want people to be able to move across those organizations because it's very, very large. Which is why I think, back around again, we ended up with this big company structure. Was success has always been bigger.
I can imagine.
Right.
So you made a big transition yourself, didn't you? Because you've gone from, we've just learnt the new word, going plural.
I like
you went from being
from single to plural.
Exactly, from singular at Netflix
plural.
to being plural, and now you're kind of helping lots of companies and stuff. How are you finding that?
Well, I'll tell you something I tell CEOs.
What's that?
I say, it's back to your permanent thing a little bit. We have this hierarchy of goodness. The best employees, well, they're our executives. They're the highest paid. They have the most power.
Yeah.
They're the
Corner
smartest.
office.
They have whatever they are. Those are the most important. Those are permanent, full-time employees. Below them are anybody in management. They're also very important. They have a lot of power. You pay them a lot of money. You want them to be with you for a really long time and they're going to have all this career progression. Then there's those highly paid individual contributors. They're very, very good. You like them very, very much. You really, really, really want to retain them. Then there's those hourly workers that some companies have, and they're nice people, but they're not that smart. You don't pay them that much. Well, then there's those high-priced consultants that they know something you don't know, and you have to pay through the nose for them. Or they're contractors. You really don't want to be part of the team because they're just going to build something and they're going to leave. God forbid a part-time worker, or a temp, or your Lyft driver.
Yeah.
Right. And we look at them literally from like goodness to like, oh, those poor people.
Yeah.
And I say, these are just cards in your deck. And if you stop thinking that your company has to be completely filled with people over here, then A, you're not being truthful, and B, you're not giving anybody in the ecosystem a chance to be extraordinarily good at the way they want to work. And so I love what I'm doing. Somebody asked me yesterday, a reporter asked me, well, if you had the right company, would you go in? I said, never say never, but I love visiting all the people that I visit. I love, I love having a conversation. I walk away and I feel like I left a seed, I love to, like at the end of my talks, I say, look, you can go back and do everything the way you've always done it. I really don't care. Yeah. I'm not here to start a revolution. You have to start it yourself. But if you're going to choose to do those things, then choose it.
Nice.
Don't just go do it because everybody else does it, and then call it best practice because you haven't measured it, right? Yeah. But and it's okay. You can say, hey, we need a lot of procedure. We make medical devices, and there can't be any errors. Makes total sense to me. So it's great. I mean, it's pretty wonderful being plural.
Being plural. So you're loving being plural, and you've been enjoying writing a book lately too, haven't you?
Yes, I'm done.
You're done.
It's kind of Patty in a box.
Patty in a box. That sounds great. For just $19.99.
Yeah, Patty in a box. It's kind of the tenets of it. It's called Powerful, and it's about creating cultures of freedom and responsibility. And because my deep belief is that you don't empower people, you can only take it away. And so what I want to talk through, it's a very, very practical book about how I thought about some of the experiments that I did, and sort of because I meet with people and they throw down the Netflix culture document and go, we want to do this. And I say, okay, well, get started. We took 14 years to write that one. And then Reed spent the last 5 years rewriting it, just so you got 20 years ahead of you, just so you know. Yeah. And so what I walk through is kind of, when we did this, what was happening, what did we try? And then right now in my consulting business, and when I speak to other people, like, what do I see other people doing? And what are the sort of thematic things I think that businesses are struggling with? Because I know you see them too. Absolutely. When we talk to people. It's how do we be agile? How do we be innovative? How do we deal with all the changes in the workforce? How do we rid ourselves of the things that we know are stupid? And so it's kind of walking through, here's how to think about recruiting in the future, here's some thoughts on compensation.
That sounds great.
Freedom and responsibility.
When's it out?
January.
So Patty, thank you so much. It's been amazing.
Amazing. It's wonderful.
As always seeing you. Patty's book, Powerful, Building a Culture of Freedom and Responsibility, is out in January 18. That must be, yeah. But you can pre-order it on Amazon now, because I checked this morning. I've already pre-ordered my copy. Build It, the Rebel Playbook for Employee Engagement, which Patty has also contributed loads to, because she's undoubtedly the queen of HR rebels, is also out in February, I think, and you can also pre-order that on Amazon too. And there's more interviews like this and all sorts of stuff at rebelplaybook.com. So Patty, thank you very, very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.